Hey everyone. Today we're going to talk about the story of a guy who used a 2-inch knife to fight off 6 attackers who tried to rob him on a subway train. So this guy right here, yeah, that guy, boarded a subway train in Chicago on a summer night in 2022 at 2 a.m. In his left hand was his cell phone, and in his right hand pocket was one of these. It is a CRKT Minimalist Bowie, a knife that I happen to own myself, and it's one of my favorites because it's compact. It is very, very sturdy in your hand, so it just feels like an extension of your hand. It's a very positive grip. Once your fingers are wrapped around these little finger grooves here, you see these little spaces, it's not going anywhere. And as you're about to see, in spite of its diminutive size, in the right hands, it'll get the job done. And it's also not expensive, so I recommend it. So he notices 2 guys enter his train car from the adjacent one. And one thing that caught his attention was that one of them was eyeballing him in a pretty shady way. So as he's focused on that guy, the second one walks past him and makes a grab for his cell phone. And I don't know if it was because he was on sort of red alert and his adrenaline was already going from the way the first guy was looking at him, but bottom line, he resists, doesn't let the guy grab his cell phone, and this escalates the situation because an immediate scuffle ensues. So these people must have spread out throughout the train working as a group, but when they notice what's going on, they pour into the car that our guy is in to offer backup to the first 2 guys. So they're wrestling for the phone, and our guy punches one of them in the face, and then he eats a punch, whereupon he goes down. I don't know if it was from the punch or if he got tripped, but in any event, he falls down, and while he's down, he gets kicked right in the face. Now, I don't know what motivated what happens next, if he was fearing for his life, if it was rage, but the knife comes out and he charges at his attackers. They see this and they turn to run. And as it so happens, the person closest to him was the guy that just kicked him in the face. He doles out a little instant karma and sticks that little knife right in his back. Dude was like, ah! So now both parties, each fearing for their safety, run in opposite directions to adjacent cars. Our guy, knife in one hand, cell phone in the other, calls 911, goes to the car that he's escaping to, and presses an emergency button which alerts the conductor to stop at the next station and hold the doors open until the police arrive. Our guy is standing there, waiting for the train to pull into the next stop and bring this insanity to a merciful end. And he notices that somebody's trying to come into his car, but since it wasn't one of the original attackers, he figured it was okay to let him in. Well, it wasn't, because it turns out that that guy was the boss that they had just reported to, and he's coming in to take care of business, which he does by trying to tackle our guy. And our guy responds by, shanking him in his ear and then again in his neck. My man was like, vamos, cabrones. And so, in complete alignment with how our guy's day is going so far, it turns out that the guy he just stabbed has just finished serving a 25-year sentence for murder. Point being, this is not any normal guy. Getting stabbed in the neck in the course of a fight is just another day at the office. So he puts his hand on his wound, looks at our guy dead in the eye and says, "You just stabbed my neck. Mother effer, I'm gonna kill you." And it's here where the train stops, the doors open, and our guy finally has a chance to escape to a safer situation, which in this case consists of a welcoming committee of the people who were just trying to attack him. So they promptly surround him, and one guy smashes a liquor bottle on his forehead, splitting it open. Mind you, the guy who he just stabbed is also part of this group. He is stopping the bleeding with one hand, but he's got a big old knife in the other one. And he proceeds to plunge it right behind the collarbone of our guy, narrowly missing major arteries, nerve, stuff that can paralyze or kill you. So now he realizes, yeah, this platform is probably not the best place for me to be, and he runs back into the car, which was actually a pretty good bit of thinking because, as it turns out, there is something known in tactical circles as the death funnel. Meaning, if you've got a weapon and you're surrounded and you're dealing with a lot of people in a confined space, what you want to do is create a situation where they can only approach you from one direction. So by being at the end of the train car, they can only approach him from one direction. And as luck would have it, it was the conductor's car, which further narrowed as you get closer to the doors that go between cars. So one guy comes at him and he cuts that guy in the arms as he's reaching for him. So he's literally keeping the entire group at bay with his 2-inch knife. What? What? And now, of course, things get even trickier for our guy, because he's got only one escape, and that is the doors that slide open in between cars. The problem is, in order for him to operate that door, he's got to turn his back on that group, which is a hell of a choice to make, because the only reason he's able to keep them at bay in the first place is that 2-inch knife. So finally, he decides on one particular moment, operates the door, decides to take that plunge, and 2 bottles get smashed on the back of his head, splitting that open. But he manages to make it out of the car and then slides the door shut and then holds it closed. So now our guy is in straight up zero fucks to give, Mission Impossible action movie mode. And he decides he is going to get off that train altogether. Now, mind you, it wasn't moving, but still, he is running on subway tracks inside of a tunnel. Decides that he's going to step over the 3rd rail. So now he's in between 2 tracks going in opposite directions. And he figures that if he gets into one of those recesses that they have for the workers, so that there's this big concrete wall that separates the 2 tracks, if he stands right there in the middle, he can only be approached from either direction, and whoever attacks him has to step over that 3rd rail. And what he's going to do is, if anyone comes at him, he will push them onto that 3rd rail, and then you're just going to have a fried attacker. And now the situation finally was over. The attackers decided not to pursue him, figuring that, you know what, this has been going on long enough, we kind of need to get out of here. So they emerged from the station, but the police had already been notified and were waiting for them. So as a self-defense instructor, I'd like to break the situation down a little bit and maybe offer some useful information, because when you have real life situations, that's exactly what you get out of it. You could see what he did right, you could see what he did wrong, and then you take it from there. And so the first question that comes up is, did the fact that he resisted and fought back actually escalate the situation in a way that caused more injury and risk to him? And to that, I'm going to have to answer yes. He definitely did not de-escalate the situation, because had he given up the cell phone, maybe none of this would have happened. Now, sometimes you still will get injured, even though you comply. I do not believe that would have been the case here. But with that said, I am not saying that he made the wrong choice. Because given how things turned out, I am all for it. My man was like, nah, fuck that. And he did what he had to do. Now, a lot of people will say, it's not worth it to lose your life over something that can be replaced. I get it. I definitely get it. But the one question you have to ask yourself is, was it really over the object itself? And I think sometimes people don't understand the dynamics that are at play there. This wasn't about a cell phone. This was about the fact that we had a guy here who refused to let someone use violence and intimidation to help themselves to what is rightfully his, and he took a stand. Now, can you wind up losing your life over that? Yes, for sure. But the question is it better to live on your knees or die on your feet? I don't know. That's a tough one. And I want to end this video by going over how the guy used the knife. Remember, he left a detailed account and had the insights to sort of break it down himself and analyze what he did right and wrong. And what he basically did was address a criticism that he had received, where people were saying that his blade was too small, that had it been bigger, it would have been more effective in injuring his targets. And he felt, I think correctly so, that it was less about the size of the blade and more about the way in which he wielded it, specifically his lack of skill in wielding it. And what he meant by that was that the stabs and swipes he was taking were wide and looping. And when you're talking about self-defense or any kind of combat sports or just hand-to-hand combat in general, the preferred method of attack is generally going to be attacking right down the middle, as opposed to the big looping shots, which are going to be less accurate. And you're going to be able to throw less of them. So the amount of time it takes me to take a wide swing and then go back and forth is going to be a lot longer than short shots down the middle, or short punches down the middle, or short face rakes down the middle. Those are always going to be more effective, and that is something you all should keep in mind when formulating a self-defense plan. Also, when it comes to knives specifically, what you're going to want to do is keep the blade close to you and then the other hand ahead so that it's protecting the blade. So if someone tries to grab it, you sort of swipe everything apart or do a little eye jab and then come in with sharp stabs. If it's a little knife, you're generally going to go to the face area. Remember, the idea is not to maim or kill. It's just to create enough hesitation, enough space for your attacker to back off so that you can make your exit. That is very different than winning a fight. So that's another thing you should keep in mind. Hope you found that useful. Stay safe, and until the next time.